Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for attending today. Is Australia Post considering selling off its profitable parcel post business? And please advise what discussions, reviews and planning has and will occur in relation to the parcel post business.
Senator, that would be a matter for government, so I would have to defer to government.
If I could just respond from the Chair's and Board's perspective, there has been no discussion, no plans, no undertakings to privatise any aspects of Australia Post business, certainly in the time that I've been there. And while we're on that time, can I correct a figure that I gave earlier? I was appointed on the 22nd of November, not the 14th of November. The 14th was the date that the press release was put out. I apologise for that.
So you can rule out that there'll be a sale of the parcel post?
Correct. Thank
Senator
you. I mean...
So can I.
Thank you. Does Australia Post consider it has a responsibility to provide a profitable business model for licensees of community post offices?
We certainly believe we have a responsibility to maintain viable partners in all the business that we undertake, both at the contractor level and at the LPO level, yes.
So you will look at their services through their eyes?
Absolutely.
The Chair of Australia Post commissioned a review by the Boston Consulting Group to inform the Board and the CEO. Why were the most heavily invested stakeholder group, the licensees, not engaged and or included in the sharing of the outcomes recommendations for that review?
Senator, if I could just correct one point. The Australia Post Board did not engage BCG. This was an independent investigation by our shareholder ministers, and we supported the investigation, but we did not engage nor ultimately conclude any position on that review.
From whom do I request to get a copy? Because it's been out since
I'm
February.
afraid we've already taken public interest immunity on that, Senator
Sorry?
Roberts. We've already taken public interest immunity on that report, Senator Roberts. The Cabinet's explicitly considered the executive summary of the BCG report. The full report, though, as is usual practice, was also available to Cabinet and considered by a number of ministers, but the report's expected to be given further Cabinet consideration in the context of ensuring that Australia Post has a sustainable future.
Could you please advise the status and next steps being taken by Australia Post with licensed post offices, LPOs, to progress payment reforms?
Senator, thank you very much for the question. I just defer to Ms Sheffield, who heads up our community and consumer area, and ask her to come to the desk and outline. We are about to kick off on the payment review process and the payment. So, Ms Sheffield.
Thank you, Mr Boyce. Thank you, Senator. Nicole Sheffield, Executive General Manager, Community and Consumer. Thank you, Senator, for that question. We work very closely with our licensees, our licensee partners and associations. The payment reform itself, we have had one consultation with LPOG, and we have a first consultation with POAL, the other group, later this week. Once we understand the principles and agree what are the areas that we will be looking at, then we will make forward some recommendations and start working that, including, as per the first lot of payment reform, looking at those payments per outlet, because when you have so many outlets, 2,580, there are a lot of impacts. So when you make any changes to payments, there's going to be some impacts that we want to make sure that we understand across the entire network. So that requires a lot of modelling, a lot of consultation. As you know, the first payment reform was very successful and introduced $50 million worth of extra payments in the last 2 years to licensees, and that was all about ensuring that they were paid for parcels and for scanning. The second lot of payment reform is going to focus on community representation and the very important role that they play in that, but also at looking at our identity services and financial services. I feel very confident that before the end of this financial year we should have some really good parameters to move forward.
So has a budget, thank you for that, and it'll save me giving my preamble for the next question. Has a budget allocation been made for Phase 2 reform implementation, which we understand is expected to begin shortly?
So
and what is the budget allocation for Phase 2? When do you anticipate it will be commenced and then implemented?
So budgets at the moment have not been concluded for next financial year. So we're in the process of discussing within the organisation all of that. But I can tell you confidently, Senator, there will be a budget allocation. We've been discussing this, and just like anything, we will put aside the required amounts. And that's part of the reason we've started the discussion so early in this year, to make sure that we allocate the appropriate amount.
And
The last
it would
question,
come
thanks,
with
Senator
extensive consultation with the LPOs?
Absolutely.
Okay. In order to achieve sustainability for LPOs, does the significant change in volume between letters and parcel post require a review of the financial relationship between with licensed post offices, especially if, yeah, that's all I need to say.
Yeah. Look, we're always ensuring the viability of our licensed post office partners. We know how important they are for us to deliver our community service obligation, but actually they're faced to our community, to regional and rural Australia. Their viability is critical, and just as we've seen, COVID has created an e-commerce boom that none of us expected, we hoped, but none of us expected, that has changed the financial model completely for our post offices, because all of a sudden their revenue drivers are significantly more coming from parcels than we've ever seen. And so it really is constantly working with them, looking at what products, services they are offering to their communities, what arrangements that we have, what opportunities we can have to introduce new products and services that will drive transactions and foot traffic for them. And I think it's something that we'll just constantly need to be looking at and working with them to look at what we can do to grow.